Welcome to another transformative episode of That's Church. Today, we have the honor of talking with the remarkable Mandy Green, all about her expertise on Mary Magdalene. Mandy introduces herself beautifully in this conversation, but we can't help but sharing how healing, touching, and spiritually uplifting it was to speak with her. Her insights on Mary Magdalene will leave you feeling empowered, especially as women. This conversation was so impactful for us, and we know it will resonate deeply with you too. Before we dive in, we're so excited to share some great news. We are hosting a special event at the new Faith Matters Campus Gallery in Provo, Utah. It will be a That's Church experience. It's coming up on November 2nd. This intimate gathering will celebrate diverse faith traditions with amazing speakers like Patrick Mason, an LDS scholar, Pastor Brittany Mangelson from the Community of Christ Church, formerly known as the RLDS or Reorganized Church, Mesa Kurgay, an incredible Muslim woman, and an interfaith couple, Ankar Hajmani, a Hindu, and Bryn Lewis, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. After their presentations, we'll hold a panel discussion, giving attendees the opportunity to ask questions and engage in meaningful dialogue about cultivating interfaith relationships. Space is limited, so save the date, November 2nd, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and start thinking of questions. It really will be a unique opportunity to feel free to ask questions you've always wanted to ask people of different belief systems and perspectives. Registration and more details will be available soon. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram at That's Church Podcast and listen to future episodes for updates. You don't want to miss this incredible opportunity. And don't forget, we also have locked episodes available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts only. This includes part 2 of this amazing episode with Mandy Green, which she dives even deeper into her insights. You can listen to these bonus episodes for only $2.99 a month or $24.99 for a full year. This really is a great way to support the show and access exclusive content. Now let's get into this beautiful conversation with Mandy Green. Is it you that talked about the red thread, or is that just the red egg and then you talked about pulling threads and
I
finding
always
out
talk
more
about
information?
threads. Like when you said a
Okay.
mosaic, I actually was thinking, I always say pulling threads. To me, it's a tapestry. And the reason I say that is I invite you, all of you, to just start pulling some of these threads. Like you said, I'm with you. If living a life in as a Mormon ends up being whatever, I love my life. I love the way I live it. This theology is so rich. It is the richest theology I can find anywhere. In saying that, I also want you to know that I have the most profound, deep love of the body of Christ. And we are one member of that. To say that we are the body is simply not true. My fellow people that I'm at school with, you've never seen devotion and love and commitment to Christ like that. So we're maybe an organ or like a big toe or something like that. I will never, like, we have some really beautiful, amazing pieces. So on one end of the spectrum, theologically, no one holds a candle to us. To me personally, the triune God does not cut it. I feel like I'm made in the image and likeness of Elohim. I feel it deeply, powerfully coursing through my veins. On the other end of the spectrum, there's so much for us to learn. There is so much for us to learn from our brothers and sisters and the ways that they've been planted and the ways they feel called to live and breathe the gospel of Jesus Christ. So pull a thread. If there's nothing to it, it's going to pull right out. It's like an old Navy shirt, right? Like well, maybe it'll pull a button off. That happened once, but if you know how those threads get stuck, it'll pull right out. But if it's not, if there's something to what we're talking about, that thread is going to keep pulling. And then guess what? When I pull this thread and I really pulled it, it was attached to like 30 other threads. And as I pull, I'm pulling like all these threads together, and I have yet, and I'm telling you, I have yet to pull one out. That's how much is here. There's so much here.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Such a great analogy.
Is there anything like within your research that you've uncovered that has been surprising to you?
Yeah. So there's a woman, her name's Elizabeth Schrader. She wrote a song about Mary Magdalene, and then she wanted to go do some research at the New York Library, and she pulled up Papyrus 66, which is one of the oldest, if not the, I think it might be the oldest text we have of the Gospel of John. Now, just as a little bit of back information, we don't have any original copies of any of this. We have copies of copies of copies, right? Where there was no Amazon, there was no printing press. And so people would copy, for example, the Gospel of John and pass it along. And then people would copy that and pass it along. So that's one of the ways we get errors in scripture is unintentional copies. Or in this case, which is fascinating, she dug this up, I think 4 years ago. She went to New York Library, pulls up Papyrus 66, and she saw that, I believe it's John 11, where we have the story of Lazarus and Mary and Martha, quote unquote. She saw that it said Mary and Lazarus, and that Mary's name had been changed to Martha in some cases, and the singular her was changed to there. Well, she's like, what is going on here? Now, this is why this is so fantastic. Because we have the story of Mary and Martha in Luke, right? And Martha gets dumped on because she's over here trying to like maintain the house, and Mary's down there looking at, listening to Jesus, and she gets mad. Well, what's interesting is right before that, we have the parable of the Good Samaritan that's saying you're supposed to go do good things. So let's not throw Martha under the bus. But here you have this person copying the text saying, oh, well, that's got to be the same Mary. I've got to throw Martha in the story. And for the last, since 394 is the date of that text, we have been saying that it's Mary and Martha, whose brother is Lazarus. When the most recent scholarship, she afterwards went to Duke Divinity School and has published this in the Harvard Theological Review. So Harvard is like, what's going on? And she's like, yeah, you got it. Right? Like, this is real legit scholarship. So this person is just like, it's called interpolated, just put Martha into this story, wanting to say, oh, this is the same Mary as Mary and Martha. I don't think it is at all. I don't think it is at all. And what she's contesting there is not only did he throw Martha in there, but she says something like, with this action, the scribe distorts and dilutes her presentation and robs her of her confession, quote, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God who has come into the world.
Wow.
So that is taken from Mary and ascribed to Martha. And going back to our conversation about Peter the rock, and remember Peter's beautiful declaration, thou art the Christ. When Jesus says, who do you say I am? He says, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Here we have Mary the tower saying, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world.
Wow.
And her contention is that that was done intentionally to dilute her testimony further, to kind of make her not the predominant. And I think it is not a stretch to say the predominant player in Christianity after the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Wow.
I really hope that in the next life that we get to look down and be like, oh, like really see what things were supposed to be. I mean, it's all what it is supposed to be, I guess, but what things were, and what life really was like when Christ was here, and because the interpretations like you said, even just the copying of scripture, and then the interpretation of even how the person that wrote it first, like the apostle that talked to Christ, how he interpreted what Christ said to him may be different than what Christ meant. You know what I mean? So like, I hope that in the next life we can be like, oh, Mary had this role that was so much more profound than we even have any idea. And, you know, and this and this and this. I just hope we get that. I really do. We'll see.
Well, why wait?
I guess.
Right? Like for me, I can't wait that long. So I'm just going. I'm just going.
You just go and you
Keep
tell us.
writing, studying, sharing.
Just keep telling us. That'd be great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So how has your spirituality changed since you've gotten to know Mary?
Well, I mean, she is the game changer for me, where I could never see myself in scripture. I couldn't see my role. I couldn't understand how priestesses and queens behave. She gives me clues to what that is. And like you said, it's a very delicious kind of search for me, and I haven't begun to exhaust it, but I love this quote. This is the quote I was digging up when I found that model and thing. But C.S. Lewis, in that essay, The Weight of Glory, said, we do not want merely to see beauty, though. God knows, even that is bounty enough. We want something else which can hardly be put into words. To be united with the beauty we see, to pass into it, to receive it into ourselves, to bathe in it, to become part of it. That is what she gives me, is this sense, just like the slightest sense of the profound beauty of the truth that we are daughters of a heavenly Father and a heavenly Mother who love us. And as their daughters, particularly as daughters of our Heavenly Mother, we have so much power and beauty. And beauty, there's a temple in Egypt, it's called Dendera, and this is the mother god's temple, Hathor. And it's just a boss temple. It's unlike any other temple in Egypt. And I wish I could explain what happens to me when I'm there, but I just feel so much strength, so much power. But Hathor's epithet, the thing that she's described as, is Hathor beautiful, like Hathor beautiful of face. And her beauty is the beauty that gives. It's the beauty that makes everything else beautiful. That's true heavenly beauty. And so when I reference beauty with our Heavenly Mother and with Mary Magdalene, that's the beauty I'm talking about. Their beauty is such that it makes everything that touches them or that they touch part of that beauty, an expression of their beauty. And that beauty can flow through us and out of us as we understand who we are and whose we are. I know that's why Mary Magdalene could stand at that tomb on that dark morning, because she knew who she was. She knew who her mother was, and she had her mother's blessings. She was ordained and set apart to anoint, to be that witness. And she knew with her mother behind her, it was like, yo, come at me, right?
Yes.
And so for me, they give me courage. They make me brave. They make me beautiful. And they make me someone who can express that beauty and share it with all of their daughters and their sons. That beauty Oh my goodness. I mean, if you look at Mary and Jesus again, like the beauty she brings out in him, the tenderness, the love, that's part of it too.
Mm-hmm. So well said. I love that you're mentioning the opposites of them, because I think some people who might not agree with this subject might say, well, maybe it's because they're complete opposites and she's sinful, yada yada. Not true. But I think of so many marriages, different examples in my life, and it's so interesting to see how opposites attract. I'm so different from my husband. Neither of us are more sinful than the other. We're just opposites, and we bring different characteristics to the table. And so when you brought that up, I thought, wow, like, of course they're bringing, and who knows what traits those are. Like Emmy mentioned, I can't wait to get to heaven to see like what they each brought to the table and what they each needed from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my husband and I are that way too. People say, oh, the conversations you must have. And I'm thinking, this is not his thing, right? But he serves, he loves to serve. And I'm riding his coattails that way, right? Like if together we make a whole, because heaven help me, if you call me to make me a casserole, I might punch you in the face, right? I probably would. I'm like, please let me mow your lawn. Like I am not about these like gender roles like that. But,
oh man, I'm the same. I'm like, let me help you move. You're not gonna like the casserole I make anyway. So.
Yeah. This is kind of not the same as what you're saying, but someone texted me the other day and they're like, can you meet this girl at the church on this day to talk about your visiting teaching or whatever it's called now? But anyway, and I said, sure. And then I texted the girl I'm supposed to meet. I said, I'm not going to meet you, but I just want you to know I didn't do it and I probably won't be doing it.
I love it. I love it so much.
Just
See, honesty just so you know, right up front.
Not gonna do that.
No need to lie.
You can check me off the list.
I
used to be very good at it. It's just not the time and place right now in my life.
Good for you.
I love it. People forget that's an option. You don't have to. No one's forcing you to do anything.
Well,
so
whatever happened is just like just letting it organically know your neighbor and want to be helpful, right? Like it's
so true.
Having to report it just seems like, I don't know.
And I think that's what the new system is trying to do, but still you're having to report it. So then it feels like not as genuine, even if it's genuine.
Even if it's genuine, that's what's unfortunate, is I think most of the time it is, but because it's being reported and because we've all been in those meetings where it's reported, it like we know how the sausage is made. You know what I mean? Like
at the same time,
and it's sad because I think it is genuine.
Yeah.
But when you have to check it off, I almost rather not and be like, this is just between you and I. I don't know.
We did it. We did this.
They need to update that.
Or let's do the temple recommend question. Are you striving? I strive to help my neighbor. I try to love God and my neighbor. Like, why can't we just let that be our whole thing? I strive to love God with all my heart, like Elohim, with all my heart, my mind, and strength. And I strive to love my neighbor as myself. And that means loving myself. I mean, really, if Jesus says in that is all the laws and all the commandments, like, it seems pretty inclusive to me. It's not much that gets through that net.
Yeah, I love it for sure. So I'm now regretting I moved your interview to after my trip because I thought maybe I'd have some great wisdom to add, and I don't, but I think it would have been better to go before because I would have known what I was looking for. So dang it.
Well, mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made.
Short, the Black Madonna is Mary Magdalene. She is the Black Madonna. You have this hidden Madonna, this one who's kind of sub rosa. She's known as the rose or the lily. Her flowers are the rose and the lily. So sub rosa would be under, right? Kind of more esoteric, the sub rosa. And so you've got the Madonna, as in Madonna and child, the mother, and then you have the bride or the Magdalene, or the Migdala. who is the Black Madonna. And she's Black for a lot of reasons. One is that she is the bride in the Song of Songs, which is such a beautiful text. We should just be so grateful that's still in our scriptures. She's the one who is hidden, and so she's under this coat of blackness. And also there's a story about Isis, who's the wife of the son of the gods, who comes and dies and is born again. As such, she the way they become gods is their bodies burn up into ash, and then they become these new creatures, much like a phoenix, right? I've got my phoenix from the Hymn of the Pearl right here. And so this is where we get these stories like Cinderella, like the woman who's covered in ash and soot. Like that's a direct reference to this Black Madonna. And so that's how you can tell actually that it's Mary Magdalene. And in Italy, in the south of France, there are hundreds of Black Madonnas that are there. And people are like, oh, she's just Black. And you're like, no, this is a different Madonna. In fact, the cult of the Virgin Mary, which is huge in Italy, from what I can tell, and my research on this is still at like the mid-beginning stage, but from what I can tell, that's all in response to this cult of the Black Madonna that rises up as Mary the Magdalene leaves, and she goes to France, and she comes in the south of France. She's really credited with evangelizing all of France. And as this cult of the Black Madonna is what it's called, is getting so much momentum and popularity, well, then you have the Catholic Church saying, oh, swear words, we got to stop this. And so we're going to just make this cult of the Virgin Mary become predominant. And we're really going to push like the Virgin Mary and this white, pristine, godly Mary, because this is all like a place we don't want to go. And we don't want to look at Christ as, people. I used to say like, well, he's human and he's divine. Or people say he's half human, he's half divine. And I think the best expression is he's fully human and he's fully divine. To talk of a fully human and a fully divine Christ, like without sexuality, isn't a fully human or a fully divine Christ. And so that whole response is where we get all of this aversion to sexuality and marriage and all these things. And yet, from what I understand, the highest gifts of godliness are unlocked and are part of the marriage covenant. They're part of being joined together. They're part of this wholeness, this completeness that comes. We had a quote on our wall forever that said, we may not have it all together, but together we have it all. And I believe that's so true. So for Christ to embody that, he would have to have someone who embodied that with him, or that made that whole togetherness with him. And to me, that is the most pressing question of our theology. And how do we arrive at that is the next, right? If that's the what, the so what is, all this matters tremendously. And screw food storage, right? If you want Zion to come, this is Zion. This is Zion, the beautiful bringing together of masculine and feminine. Like that's the work of Zion. That's how we raise our collective consciousness, by honoring both the masculine and the feminine. And the now what is, how do we uncover this? How do we understand this? How do we start to embody this and live this as women and men of Christ?
Wow.
How do we?
Tell us. I love so much that you brought up sexuality in that, because I think that's something that no one talks about with Jesus Christ. And he came here to experience being human in all of its messiness. And there is messiness in that. There's messiness in every single facet of being a human. But why do we take away? We he goes through temptation. He goes through being wronged and friendships and all of these really like key parts of being human and the difficulties in it and suffering, and yet we take away his spirituality. It's such an interesting thing. And
Sexuality.
I can't, oh, so
Yeah.
sorry. We take away his sexuality when that just doesn't make sense. It feels like we're just picking and choosing parts of the human experience. And I guess maybe some of the popes were uncomfortable and we're just like, we'll just take that out, delete, pretend that didn't happen. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
Well, we
there's
give this very
messiness in
Puritan,
it, but there's beauty in it.
There's so much beauty. And I regret that we never talk about that beauty. Growing up, it was always like, don't think about it. Don't go there. Sex is bad, right? Then you get married. It's like, okay. And then we wonder why we have so many marriage sex therapists for LDS people.
Yes.
Because we were not, it was such a myopic way to look at sexuality and such an underdeveloped fear-based way to come at sexuality, rather than saying if premature sexuality can really, if it's a fire and playing with that prematurely can burn you or cause like scars or something, then the equal opposite would also be that channeling that and living into that is powerful beyond belief. And, I think it was C.S. Lewis too, who said, in speaking about it, he said, the problem today with sexuality is that, if marriage is a pie of 12 pieces and we just want the one slice of the pie, but it's built in with devotion and trust and living together and working through the battles of life and commitment, then you can't just take it out of the pie. It exists within a pie. He also said, for people to say like the temptation was so great, he said, no one understands better than Christ because he's the only one who's felt the fullest power of temptation and resisted it. And I think both of those are relevant in that conversation, to say that he knows the full extent of how sexuality can bless and be wielded as a weapon against us. And it's a shame that we don't talk about the balance in all of that, or how it's a piece of beautiful, eternal, heavenly relationships.
Yeah. Amen.
I agree. Was there anything on your trip to France? Was there anything new that you discovered?
Oh gosh, there's always something new. That's the beauty. That's the thing with truth, is it's always going to instruct you. It's always going to teach you something. I think this last time I actually was able to walk the labyrinth at Chartres Cathedral, which is said to be the most beautiful cathedral in Europe, and it's built to Notre Dame, Our Lady, a Black Madonna. Did you know that entire structure is built to the Black Madonna? Notre Dame means Our Lady in French. Yes.
I had no idea.
That is the kingpin of the structures. I think that is really explicitly all about the Black Madonna. And incidentally, they took the Black Madonna and painted her face white, and now she's placed upstairs. But the desecration continues. But anyway, I was able to finally walk this labyrinth, and it's huge, and you're supposed to follow this kind of rhythm as you go around and make this heavenly round, and then from there you leave the labyrinth and you walk up to the altar, which is this amazing transcendent statue of Mary the Magdalene, kind of being transported into heaven. And as I walked that labyrinth, there were a lot of pilgrims there. And I was thinking about how we were all fellow pilgrims on this journey together. And as you would walk, your shoulder would brush one of the pilgrims on this journey with you. My youngest daughter who just started her mission. Man, I miss her so much. She was in this pilgrimage with me and people in our tour and perfect strangers who share this love and devotion for this woman. And as we would brush shoulders, I was so struck by one of the gifts of my journey is the shoulders of people I get to brush as I walk this holy walk. And for most of my life, I tend to be sad about when certain things kind of eras end, or you don't get to see people as much, or things just life kind of takes you a different direction. And I just felt kind of the beauty of this journey of, yeah, we had this moment here. Oh, I got to brush shoulders with you here. I got to walk alongside you for this little stretch of the path. And just this profound gratitude for all of the gifts, and most especially the people that I've been privileged enough to brush shoulders with along this path, ancient or modern, right? To me, this woman is as real as life itself. These people who took the trouble to scratch down on papyrus or sheepskin their witnesses or their truths they wanted to pass down. We are all just fellow sojourners on this beautiful holy path that, like you said, nobody walks the exact cadence. No one walks that labyrinth together. You have your own cadence, your own path, but just the beauty of the shoulders I get to rub and the beauty of walking alongside some really beautiful children of our heavenly parents is a gift in my life. And I think about that regularly. I think we're all in this together. And when we live into that and lean into that, I really, really, with my whole soul, think that beauty is ahead of us, that we can take this to the next level, that we can collectively rise together as pilgrims and as searchers of the divine.
It's all so beautiful. And I don't want it to end. And I just realized we're a little over the time that
are we?
That
sorry,
we
I'm
told
just
you.
going crazy.
I'm sorry that
take
we
it
want to
all
respect
day.
your time. We could just listen all day, but you truly are just a light, and this has been so enlightening. And now I have to go back to Europe. I just got home.
Same.
I really love that what you were saying though, that I just got home from Europe, and every time I go there, I say I was meant to live here. And they're like, my heart is there, especially in France, actually. And I love it so much. And I have a really hard time coming home and getting back to real life and not being there and not living kind of a slower life, and
for sure.
And you do, I think, and maybe it's being on vacation as well. If we lived there, maybe it wouldn't be as slow as it seems to be, but I think having those opportunities to see people and to rub shoulders with them and to see people in different situations and different ways of living and different cultures is just such a beautiful thing that is probably my favorite thing in my life, which is why we do this podcast, because we want to know about people that are different. And
ladies contribute so much beauty to that conversation. Please let me say thank you. That's such an important part of this.
Thank you
so much.
That's so nice. And I love what you said, that we have this moment and we can have other moments that are different, that helps me to kind of rationalize, or not rationalize, that helps me to kind of reconcile my longing of to be back in those places and, seeing, rubbing shoulders with people constantly, and we're doing that here. But anyway, so I appreciate those words, and it's very helpful for me in my life, I think, in a lot of aspects. Okay, before we ask our last question, we ask one kind of silly question that we like to end on. And before we do that, though, I just want you to share with our listeners how they can find you. Give us your Instagram or your website, and if you use Instagram, what do you prefer? How do people contact
I
you?
have a love-hate relationship with Instagram. In fact, I'm amazed that we actually communicated through that. So good job, you guys.
Yay.
It's Mandy B. Green on Instagram, but it's Mandy B. Green is my website, mandybgreen.com. My podcast is called Reflecting Light. Took me years to find that title. But I really am just a reflection of the light, not the source. I just reflect that light into any space I can. And so, yeah, all of the things I offer are on my website, the tours, the classes. It's all there.
Awesome.
Wonderful. I just want to say you do reflect light, and you say that it's not you, but you bring something very special along with you that Emmy and I are so blessed to have felt today, because I'm going to get emotional again. I feel so spiritually fed. And so thank you so much for being here. Thank you for brushing shoulders with us. I'm going to use that quote from now on. I love that so much.
Yes, me too. I teach gospel doctrine in my ward, and I was just thinking, I think I want to ask to be released, because it's just, I have so much going on, and I'm just not feeling like in tune at this very moment. But after talking with you, and I just feel that spirit again, and that like love of the gospel. And so I'm like, okay, never mind. I think I'll give it another shot.
Please
I'll
don't.
keep going.
I teach gospel doctrine, and
Oh, really?
It is so important that, we in gospel doctrine, I can't freelance, right? But there's so much richness to the text that, expanding the borders of Zion is really those of us who are up against that tent, just like, this can go out a little more here, and this can go out here, and this can go out here. We really want to expand that. And so if you have a greater understanding, and I really feel like we stole a sacred moment here in time together. I'm just grateful you are who you are. It's a gift. It's a gift for me.
Thank you. I agree.
This is church,
I feel
y'all.
the same. Yeah, that's church.
We're all crying now.
I've really been crying throughout this whole episode, but I'm like, dang, you can't even tell my makeup.
I can tell, and then I see you cry, and then I cry.
You can tell.
It's a cry train.
And we're not apologizing.
That's it. Nope. We said it at the same time. We're not apologizing for it. Yes. Own it.
That's funny.
I love it so much. Thank you so much. And so for our last question, we just like to lighten it up a bit and just learn a bit more about you. And so we always ask our guests to share either you don't have to, but you could share an embarrassing moment with us, or you can answer this question, which is, if Mary Magdalene were here today, what would you ask her? That's a big question.
Well, I have a litany of embarrassing stories. I'm really I love to laugh a lot. And lately I've started wheezing. I think it's that I'm old, or it's like my menopausal middle that is bigger. It's embarrassing. I wheeze like an old lady, like nostalgia in the new Inside Out. But I have so many embarrassing moments. It's hard to find one. There's one that's probably best left in heaven. But in seminary graduation, I was wearing this bright red velvet dress that I had bought for Sweetheart's Dance, and I pulled it back out for seminary graduation. And I grew up in like the 80s, so it's very like Jessica McClintock, right? I don't know how we ever wore that much lace, but anyway, this big red, fiery. I mean, if I have a favorite color, it's red. big red fiery velvet dress, and I'm coming up to the stand, and everybody's eyes are on the stand. And I was trying to find the one empty seat on the stand because you had to wait like an hour to bear your testimony. And there was this beautiful girl who was Down syndrome, and I was trying to navigate around her, and I couldn't. So I kind of like just pushed my momentum forward. Well, I didn't navigate anything, and I took a head dive, and my legs kicked up, and the whole audience of like 800 people is watching me take a nosedive in my red dress across the stage, and it just erupted into laughter. My poor friend was bearing her testimony, and I remember just staying down there a little bit.
That is so funny.
Like the football quarterback's like, "Mandy, are you okay?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm just gonna stay down here and
Just leave me here.
Just pretend I'm not here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's so
I can
good.
speak about Mary
Oh my
with
gosh.
grace and poise and beauty, but my normal life is not that poised at all. I have bruises all over. I run into corners, and I take nosedives and do all kinds of foolish things
So
all the
good.
time.
That is awesome.
I love it. See, these are the
This is my
humanizing
favorite.
moments.
I love to hear. I
Oh,
love to
I'm a
humanize
total
people.
fool. Oh, I'm a total fool. Like I sweat a lot. Like I'm pitting out right now. Luckily, I have like a big loose shirt
I
on.
love it.
Oh, that is
I love
awesome.
it. Oh, I love
Some
it. Thanks for
people's
being
embarrassing
real.
stories, I'm like, that's not that, but that's pretty good. That was
That's
pretty
a
good. I
good
gotta
one.
say,
It's up there. It's up there with some of the best. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm plenty human. You will always find evidence of my
Good,
humanity.
good.
I'm like 90% human and maybe 10% divine at this moment in time.
I love it.
I watched this reel of someone like running into corners and always having bruises. So I was like, son of a gun. No wonder. Like all these parts of your life that are suddenly explained.
Watch the ADHD reels for hours because I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
It is so.
Information.
It is so helpful though to have it all explained and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. There's one where she's like answering like something like this, like my glasses case. She's like, ADD hotline. Oh, hobby jumping. Yes. Because you knew you needed that. Yeah. Oh, and you knew you needed macrame. And I literally looked down to the corner of my bedroom where there was a half-finished macrame that I had to have that I knew I was going to do. That sat there for 6 months. And I was like, you just explained my whole life to me.
But you can't throw it away because it's half done. So you gotta.
It's gonna be great when it's done.
Someday you might. That's the thing.
Yes.
Well, I bought it instead of the $2,000 like loom that people put wool on. There's this woman who does these reels to very calming music, and you're just like, I need to spin wool.
You didn't know this was the hobby you needed in your life.
My friend is a therapist. She's like, do not buy the wool spinner. So that was my $40 like, I'm gonna satisfy this itch. That's my embarrassing thing. I just always satisfy these crazy itches that never actually come to anything.
Well, after Italy, my itch right now is we're gonna buy a pasta maker. Like my son is in it with me. Ravioli. We found like a ravioli thing, and I'm like, Todd, I have to have this right now.
Fully support. Fully support.
I'll probably do it once or twice.
Yep. And it will go into the museum. Well, you know, I hear you. I feel you. And you know
it's all good intentions.
So much bonding through ADHD or ADD.
Yeah.
Okay, and then our last question is, yes, what would you ask her if you could meet her?
What would I ask her? I think I would ask her, I mean, I really want to say, what would you tell us today? But I think she's trying to tell us that. I think the more pressing question for me is, how did you persevere? What saw you through? Like, what saw you through? What is the anchor that anchored you, no matter what, hell or high water? And it was hell and high water at many times. What anchored you? And I think it was her love for the Lord, but I really want to know through her lens as a woman in that experience, in that time, with all the pushback she was getting, knowing the second she said it that she would get pushback, how she persisted in her testimony of Christ, in being a woman, in being herself, in leaving behind all of that, going to France. Like, how did you persist? How did you continue to find a way to go forward with this beauty that is you? And how we can, that would show me how we persist and go forward.
Mic drop.
Wow. Mic drop. Thank you so much for being here. We've loved our conversation, and I just feel, I feel the spirit, but I just feel so empowered as a woman as well.
Yes.
Like,
Good.
I'm ready to go out there. Watch out, world.
That is her. That is her. That is the tower. That's
You
beauty
are.
that
The
lifts
tower.
and elevates and champions and kicks a little ass. I'm not going to lie.
Hell yes.
Love it.
Fully agree. Fully support.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Just so enlightening.
Yeah, you're very empowering. And I wrote that right here, actually, before you said it, Ash. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for joining us today for this beautiful conversation with Mandy Green. Next up, we are so excited to share with you a truly unique episode featuring Ankar Ajmani and Bryn Lewis. They have an interfaith marriage, which is quite special and different from what we often see here in Utah. While many interfaith marriages in the area result from one partner leaving the religion of origin, Ankar and Bryn's story began interfaith before they got married. Ankar offers deep insights into Hinduism and Sikhism, and together they share how they fully embrace and support each other's religious beliefs. Their wedding took place in both the Krishna temple, the one that we discussed in our episodes 3, 4, and 5, and an LDS church, with a very supportive LDS bishop guiding them through the process. It was a fascinating and inspiring conversation, and we can't wait for you to hear it. Ankar and Bryn will also be speaking at our upcoming That's Church experience on November 2nd in Provo, Utah at the Compass Gallery. So this is a great way to get to know them before the event. We'll be sharing more details about registration soon, so be sure to follow us on Instagram at That's Church Podcast for all the updates. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.